Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over what happened on Friday. This video, of course, is a couple of days late, but nothing new has happened since. So we're good to go on that end. And I'll give you my thoughts on what happened on Friday and essentially what we can expect going into tomorrow and next week. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc. Well, again, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market is open. Definitely check that out. The link, of course, is down below for just $3 a month. That's all it is. It's a YouTube membership. It's in the description of every video. Just again, $3 a month, all my Tesla updates, and including sometimes, of course, I share updates on Spike, UQ, broader market, things like that as well. $5, of course, includes NVDA in there as well if you're interested. And then for $7 a month includes first and second tier plus non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks and charts that I share opportunities in. And yeah, so definitely check that out. Again, if you're interested, I would love to have you there. But jumping into it, Tesla closing the day up a pretty respectable 6% on the day after JPOW seemed pretty dovish, right? People are now expecting a rate cut where the market had a pretty good day on Friday, especially stocks like Tesla. On phase, where's on phase? On phase up almost 11%, right? Stocks that rely on cuts, right? Stocks that benefit off of cuts essentially have been performing quite well actually on Friday, while stocks like Netflix that don't really care, you can see are pretty flat, right? They don't really care. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, right? It's irrelevant. So, that's why Tesla with a pretty nice respectable day closing at pretty much $340 per share. So what does this actually mean moving forward? Is Tesla finally bullish, right? Is it finally breaking out? Is it finally ready to make new highs and make our way, well into the high 300s? That's the question. I personally think the chances are definitely looking pretty damn good, right? I'll be completely honest. The chart, there's a lot of aspects that are looking quite phenomenal. Now, it doesn't mean it's just going to skyrocket up to, 360, 380 starting, Monday or something, anything like that, right? As usual, it'll be a stair step, right? There'll be, situations, there'll be movements, there'll be zigzags. It's not just going to go up like this. We'll have movements, we'll have zigzags, the usual thing, if you will. But the overall path right now, I'll be honest, there's still one final thing that the bulls need to do, in my opinion, which is essentially to break pretty much above the very high 340s, which is the level that we got rejected at many times here, right? Technically got rejected here, many times over here. Like this level needs to get broken, right? This kind of, high 340s range does need to break. But if we can break that, that's obviously even better. But the way the Friday closed and the way it's looking, let me move this actually like this, let me look a little bit better. The way the Friday closed and the way it's looking does look very promising for the bulls, right? It absolutely has a promising look for the bulls. Why is that? Well, first and foremost, like I mentioned before, despite this, there being a risk, right? There was definitely a risk with this being a false breakout into potentially, strong reversal to the downside, which, there was a risk of a pretty strong bearish reversal. I mentioned many times also, while the exponential moving averages are bullish, this still has this bullish retracement look to me, right? I kept mentioning the Fibonacci's and pretty much holding about 314, 315 roughly. I kept saying as long as that holds, despite there, being a bit of a questionable price action up here, this, potentially false breakout, which, definitely could be bearish. And that was absolutely the risk. This wasn't a risk-free trade. Nothing ever is. But I kept mentioning how, there is this potential for this bullish retracement back into these fibs. And as long as pretty much this kind of 315-ish level holds, the bulls are not out of the woods, or they're not, you shouldn't discount them just yet, right? There is still this bullish potential. And that's exactly what we got. We got that absolute perfection of a retrace right into those Fibonacci's, and then we got a beautiful bounce from it. Not only did we reclaim the low 330s, like I mentioned, that I would like to see, which is obviously a good sign, but we have arguably closed outside of this trend line. But like I said, the daily trend line, there's so many ways you can draw it, right? There's more candles, there's more subjectivity, if you will, behind it. And I mentioned the weekly is the one I care more about, right? Because if the weekly is looking good, and if the weekly looks like it's breaking out, there's a good chance it's breaking out, right? And the weekly does look like it's breaking out. That's the good sign. Now, it's not the most convincing breakout. You can see it's not substantially like above the trend line, but above the trend line nonetheless. So we also have the MACD with a bullish crossover for the very first time. You can see how tight it was essentially for how many weeks is this, right? You can go and look at it yourself. Again, my MACD settings are different. They're not the standard MACD settings. Keep that in mind. But you can see the pressure, the pent up pressure in the stock that existed right around here. All it takes is some good catalyst from Tesla themselves or Elon or a mix of the two. And, this could really send the stock higher substantially, especially the bullish flow, I should say, that we saw on Friday. If I go over to the Friday options flow, especially during the morning, I saw some of the most bullish flow I've seen in Tesla for honestly a very long time. These kind of blue ones right here, September 12th was the flow or the options, right? 350 strike for these right here, 350, 350, 350, 350. but they're in pretty large size: 5.4 million, 5.4 million, 4.8 million, 5.3 million, about 20, one, two, three, yeah, about 20 a million in calls came in on Tesla stock. And this is just for that strike. Just for that 350 strike for the September 12th. And this was when Tesla was at 336. It's not that much higher. It's only $4 higher than that, right? It's not substantially higher. So some whale is expecting this to continue upwards, and probably nicely upwards as well, at least to 350, probably pretty soon. And I have to say, I can't fully disagree with that. But the point I'm just trying to make is the fact that this is a bullish breakout on the weekly time frame. So to me, there's a few other things that are also really critical here. I mentioned how every time that we had these weeks right back here, right? Let me go ahead and draw a rectangle here. Pretty much like these weeks right here, you can argue, right? This kind of whole situation right here, right? What do you notice happened at this kind of rectangle that I drew? All of these weeks that existed, all these candle closures, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them went above it, went above it, went above it, went above it. But what do they all pretty much do? They all pretty much close at 330 or below, right? This sort of range right here. None of them, even though despite going above it, none of them were able to close weeklies above pretty much 330, very low 330s, we'll say, because each of them got rejected and then ended up closing below 330, below 330, below. And then last week I mentioned how, okay, it's not super convincing, but we did finally manage to close above 330, a weekly candle closure above 330, ever so slightly. Not super convincing, but it happened. And what do we do today? Or this week, I should say. Same thing, but much more convincing. Much more convincing. So in other words, again, we're taking this level that, weeklies had issues closing above because they always close below. And now we had 2 weeks in a row, with the second week being last week, being much more convincing, closing above. Something that the previous weeks, many weeks, by the way, were unable to do. All these factors are good. These are good signs. Now, again, like I said, does this mean that Tesla is a 100% guaranteed to rocket up and it's guaranteed to rocket higher? 350, 380, 400? No, nothing is guaranteed, and you'll never hear me say it's 100% guaranteed. Because if you ever think something's 100% guaranteed, you're probably destined to lose and you're destined to fail. Nothing's 100% guaranteed, not in the market at least. So always understand that there's always a risk. For instance, let's talk about the risk. What is the risk here? What can happen to Tesla? Maybe even next week, let's say. Let's say it falls apart. Maybe it's not as bullish as we thought. Maybe you were wrong. And maybe it does retrace and actually reverse into the bearish territory again. That is a possibility. If you completely discount that and you go all in, like short-term call options or something, degenerate like that, expecting this to be just 100% a bullish movement to the upside, you deserve to lose. Honestly, you really just straight up deserve to lose. However, what the bears want to do, if they can manage to do it, of course, pretty much close a weekly below 330. If the bears can close next week below 330, that's a red flag. The more below 330, the worse it is, but just below 330. If I see a weekly closure next week below this range right around here, that would be very bearish. That would be very concerning. And that would very much make me question of this breakout, like substantially. And I would probably start flipping literally bearish as opposed to back to neutral. There's a good chance I flip straight up bearish at that point. Because if this cannot continue and hold this strength up in this 330 range and then ultimately start making its way higher, then I don't know what can. Because this is as good of a setup as you can ask for. The only red flag I see with the setup is the fact that the weekly volume definitely could be better. The weekly volume, a little bit lacking. Even the daily volume last week, a little bit higher than usual, which is good. But I would like to see something up here, something higher, a little bit higher. That would have been better. So the only red flag I see with this potentially being a bull trap is the volume. It's okay. It's good, but it's not amazing. You know what I mean? It's not, wow, that's good volume. It's just not that high, but it's good, but it's okay. It's good enough. It's just, again, obviously the higher the better, right? It's more convincing. So just keep that in mind. Those are all those factors. So again, below 330, a weekly close below 330, even a daily close back below 330, I'd be careful. I would definitely start being very, very, very careful. But above it, it's looking good. Because to me, this still looks like pretty much a nice looking bull flag retracement right into the Fibonacci's, right into that 618, looking pretty textbook, pretty beautiful follow through, the pretty beautiful breakout, and everything's looking pretty textbook. And if this ends up playing out the bull flag roughly, like this, and we did break out somewhere around here, if you do a measured move, something like this should take Tesla. In my opinion, I'd be surprised if we don't see the very high 300s, maybe even in September. Sometime in September, if we don't see high 300s, like 380 at least, I'd be surprised. I would really be surprised, as long as, of course, 330 continues holding. With my main target being around 380 to 390, with my kind of, more greedy target being the low 400s. But again, we'll take it day by day, step by step, level by level. But this should result in a pretty explosive move regardless overall, because there was a lot of pent up pressure. Also, we have the 4-hour time frame. What do we get? Well, we got another breakout right here. You can see broke above this trend line. Pretty much the exact same one on the 1-hour time frame, broke above this trend line. All things are looking good. To me, the worst case scenario, while still being bullish, is we get a small retracement back down to about the mid 330s, maybe the low 330s, worst case scenario. But as long as that holds, I would expect continuation higher. So yeah, that's kind of what I see right now, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens moving forward. The 1-hour SMI is a little overheated, which is why, again, wouldn't fully shock me to see a little bit of a retracement, potentially a little small cool off to start the week. But again, as long as the mid to low 330s, ideally the mid 330s, like 335. But if we go a little bit lower, the lower 330s, 333, 332, 330 itself, as long as that overall range holds, I do maintain a pretty bullish bias, right? And again, if we come back down to those 330, this could just set up essentially a nice looking bullish head and shoulders as well. There's that potential. There's a lot of bullish potential. There's a lot of things setting up that do look bullish, that the bulls have a lot to work with. The ball is absolutely in their courts. And yeah, there's a chance they fumble it, but as of right now, until I see that, I give them the benefit of the doubt pretty substantially here. But anyways, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.